This episode of Dynamite TV was brought to you by Reality of Wrestling and the Walker, Texas Lawyer Arena.
Yo, world, what's up? This is Guru Dynamite, a part of the Big Propaganda Wrestling Podcast. And today we have a special live location. Man, we have Reality of Wrestling, and I'm here with your Reality of Wrestling television champion, Mr. Chandler Hopkins, the six shooter. Bang, bang.
Yes, sir. How you doing, man?
Today, brother?
Doing pretty good, brother. Thanks for doing this with me. I appreciate it.
Man, no problem. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
So I want to dive into first your background as a professional wrestler, how you got started.
Okay. So I have mainly like multi-athlete type background. I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai whenever I was younger. I also was an amateur wrestler. I started about when I was in the sixth grade. But I've done pretty much every sport you can think of. I've played football from middle school all the way to college level. I've even played semi-pro and arena football. I played in Dallas Cowboys Stadium as well, AT&T twice. That was pretty awesome. I've done basketball, track, all these different types of athleticism type sports that have gotten me to the point where I was ready to be a wrestler. I think biggest thing with that was footwork is kind of a really big thing here in wrestling, and I think doing those type of sports helped me get ready just body wise and mentally wise for what you need to do inside this ring. Um, I wasn't even in any kind of sport when I found wrestling. I was actually selling cars, and a buddy of mine had said something to me about wanting to go to a WWE show, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll go to a show with you." And we were sitting there, and like I hadn't really been talking about wrestling at work or anything. I was just focused on the job. And we got there, and he starts telling me about all the storylines and who's who. And I'm in my head, I'm like, "Yeah, I'll watch. I know," but I'm just letting him kind of do his thing. And so he gets to tell me about all the storylines and everything like that. I'm just letting him listen to him, watching him and everything. I'm like, "Oh, by the way, yeah, I'm like an avid wrestling fan too." So we start just going back and forth about some of our favorite things in wrestling. And he asked me if I'd ever been to like an independent show, and at that point, I'd never heard of that. I was like, "What's an indie show?" And this is probably 2015, 2016 era. And I'm like, I've never even been to one of those. What is that? He's like, "Well, I'm going tomorrow. You want to go with me? I will get you an extra ticket." So I ended up going with him, and it was a company called Imperial Wrestling Revolution out of Oklahoma. And they were having just like a normal show, but at intermission, they had stated something about looking for wrestlers for their training school. And wrestling was always a big thing for me. When I was younger, I didn't really get the grace period to kind of watch whatever I wanted, like some kids do. I had a single mother. She raised me and my brother till I was about 12 and he was 10. So everything was very G rated. Most everything we did was on the farm. We were worked a lot whenever we were younger. We helped around the house and stuff like that. So I didn't know wrestling until my stepdad came around. When he did that, he started letting us watch like wrestling with him and stuff, and it took off. Started doing wrestling moves on a trampoline, like I think most of us did. I did a frog splash on my brother from the top, from the yeah. So I got up on the roof because I could jump on the trampoline and get up on the roof. And my brother was laying down, so I just went for a frog splash. And he put his hands up. I broke his wrist.
Oh, wow.
And it was funny because at that age, you're like, you just don't want to get in trouble. So I literally was like, "Don't tell mom, don't tell mom, don't tell mom," right?
Yeah, that's the story.
Yeah, well, wrist is like this. You kind of have to say something. But she she was very cool about it. She understood because boys will be boys. And about that time, she's like, "Well, if you're gonna do it, I'd rather you do it safely. So I'll watch it with you and things like that." So I got into it very young and started really doing that type of stuff. And then once I hit like sixth grade, I started amateur wrestling because I was like, "Man, wrestling is really kind of what I want to do. Like, that's awesome." So I did amateur wrestling for a little bit in high school and stuff like that. Didn't really do too much with it because I didn't hit a growth spurt until I was in college. I weighed about 135 and was about 5'5" when I graduated.
Oh, wow.
So I was a tiny kid.
Tiny kid, yeah.
So I really didn't do much with wrestling, but I was a really good receiver and I was a slot receiver. And I was really quick.
That's normally how it goes.
Yeah, and I was really quick. So I got picked up by a school in Oklahoma, SWASU, Southwestern Oklahoma State University.
Okay.
Played a little bit here and there for them, and then I went back home to Amarillo and found a semi-pro football team that was there. Played outdoor for them for a little bit. Then I went to Lubbock and I played for them for a little bit, Lubbock HC Bisons, and that's where I got to play at AT&T Stadium. So it's really starting to develop my football game. I was like, at that point, I was like, okay, football's where it's at. So I had really put wrestling on the back burner. It wasn't really something that I was actively seeking anymore. football was the goal. And then football kind of just fell out, and it just got to a point where I was like, all right, well, football's not it. I'm an athlete. What am I going to do? Like, I don't want to do the 9 to 5. That wasn't me. Um, and then it fell in my lap whenever I was working as a car salesman with the guy just asking if I wanted to go wrestling show. And then I went to the independent show, seeing that they were holding tryouts. And I was like, you know what? Why not? So I put in my email with all the stuff they had asked for, kind of my background and photos of my physique. And literally, I put in the email, and within 5 minutes, the owner was messaging me back. Yeah, we would like to have you. Can you make these dates? But in the car business, they don't let you have weekends
Oh
off.
yeah, no, not at all.
So it was one of those things where I kind of really had to choose. Did I want to chase the dream, or did I want to just be satisfied with what I had? I had a house, I had cars, I had my stuff as an employee selling cars, and I made a good living doing it. But it wasn't fulfilling. It wasn't what I really wanted to do. So I took the leap of faith, and so I made a deal with my car manager, and I told him, I was like, I'll tell you what, I know I'm not allowed to have weekends off, but if you'll let me work Monday through Friday, and I exceed my goals numbers that I'm supposed to hit every month, I get Saturdays and Sundays off to go train. He said, okay, I'll do that. I don't think he thought I was going to be able to do that because I worked harder than I had ever worked there before.
Yeah.
I was actively seeking car sales every single day, emails, Facebook was big for me. And I proved to him that that was something I really wanted to do on the side of just cars. So I was driving to Ardmore, Oklahoma from Oklahoma City, which is about a 2.5 hour drive. I'd drive down there Saturday morning. I'd train. We'd train from about 11 o'clock in the morning to about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd drive back home, wake up Sunday, I'd do it again, and I'd come back. And then Monday, I'd go back to work selling cars. And I did that for about 3 months. My training wasn't traditional. It was very much a startup indie company, so they were looking for something then and there, and someone they could put something on. My very first day of training, I had a full-fledged 7-minute match with one of their top guys.
So let me ask you this. I'm going to interject.
Yeah,
That 7-minute match.
worst match I've ever had.
Okay, so everyone says that, so that's why I'm like asking that question. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, worst match I ever had. I didn't have a finisher or anything, and they asked me if I felt comfortable on the top ropes, and I'd always done things like off of diving boards. My grandpa had a public pool in Pampa, Texas, and so I grew up in the water, jumping off diving boards and everything like that. So I was like, yeah, I should be okay with that. That should be fine. So he's like, all right, cool. Give him a frog splash. I was like, okay. I stood up on that top rope and, oh, this is higher than I thought it was. You know those like leaning towers where you just kind of lean up? Yeah, that's what the frog splash was. But yeah, the first day was that. I literally went through all the bumps, all the drills, ran the ropes, and they just liked my footwork. And he was like, I'm looking for somebody of your caliber, but I'm kind of needing to fast track somebody. Is that something you're okay with? At the time, I didn't really realize what that meant, right? Basically, he was going to throw me to the wolves.
Yeah.
I learned real quick. 3 months in, I had my first full-fledged match, and 6 months into that, so 3 months after that, I wrestled Chavo Guerrero Jr. for the title that they had for Imperial Wrestling Revolution. Chavo asked for the match. I get to the arena that day, and Chavo is very old school. He looked at me and he said, "What's your finisher?" And at the time, it was the rolling flatliner that I do.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Okay, cool. I'll see you out there, kid." That was it. That's all I got from him. I hit the curtain and I walk out and I'm standing in the ring and I have no idea what's fixing to happen. I know I'm fixing to wrestle a legend and I know I'm supposed to go 20 minutes for him and I'm supposed to win this belt. We get in the ring and honestly, it was the best thing that could ever happen to me. I learned from a legend right then and there what wrestling really was and not what today's wrestling tells us it is. I learned really quick that the spots and the moves don't matter. It was what we could pull out of the fans, the entertainment value.
The emotional investment.
Exactly. There was one point in the match where I remember him giving me a headlock takeover, and we literally laid there on the mat for a good 3 or 4 minutes while the fans booed him, and he just said, "Stay there. I'm going to show you why this matters." And he let that crowd get so riled up to where they were booing him so bad that by the time I came up to do my comeback, there was no going back down. It was there the entire time. They were ready. So he taught me a valuable lesson very early into my career, and here I am 8 years later, and I'm getting to do some of the stuff that I never thought I would get to do as a kid, but I'm living my dream now. I've been able to travel all over the states. I've wrestled names. I've been on TV. I've had 17 plus matches at AEW. I've wrestled for TNA, ROH, and Future of Honor. I've done stuff for MLW. I've wrestled for AAA. Uh, Last night I had my 727th match. And I keep here just to show you, I keep on my phone. So Shawn Michaels, he used to write down all of his matches. Chris Jericho did the same thing. And I don't write down who my matches were with, but after every single match, I go back and I just change my number. And it's just a good way for me to kind of keep track of what and where I'm at. Where is that match number? That was last night. So
That's
now
actually a good thing, though. It's actually a good thing to do.
it's nice to have because it shows me that it's not just saying I'm a wrestler, but I'm proving it too. There's not a lot of people that will be 8 years in that have almost 800 matches. That's almost 100 years a match. Most people as rookies, a year in, 2 years, 3 years in, they're wrestling 30 times a year, if that. You're not having a whole lot of matches because you're being taught and you're being groomed to get to that spot. I was very fortunate that whenever I got in, that I got in at the right spot, and Chavo just took me under his wings.
So from that day forward, you realize more so that it's not, like you said, it's not really the spots; it's telling the story
Yeah,
inside of the ring.
it's the investment that you have to pull out of the fans, right? Because they can watch you do the same thing over and over and over again, and at some point in time, it's like, okay, yeah, I've seen him do it, but why am I doing it?
Yes.
What's the point behind it? What's the reasoning for me to do that in that moment? And there's times where just a simple look at a fan and making eye contact with them does more for a match than a strike or one of your big moves. You'll see a lot of times people do a big move and the crowd's silent because there was no reason for it and they were expecting something different. Or they've seen you do it so many times and then it gets to a point where they're just like, okay, it was cool, but that's the 30th time I've seen you do it. You know what I mean? So that match put me on a fast track to really like learn this business and understand what it is, not just from a wrestler's standpoint, but as an entertainer standpoint.
Hmm. So I did want to dive into how we got to this point.
It's a
So
long road.
first, I will dive into your feud with Eric
Okay.
Lockhart because you were chasing him for this at one point in time.
Yeah.
And so, how do you feel like those matches with him kind of evolved you to get to here?
So I've only actually had the one triple threat with Eric. Eric was the guy that had this when I first came through, and then Clay had taken it off of him. But the story was always chasing kind of both of them.
Yes.
Um, Eric and I think, are very similar in the way we work. He's also in this ring. His mind works so well. I feel like he's so underrated, and he could do so much in this business if someone gave him the right opportunity. Eric is phenomenal at what he does in this ring, and he's got a mind for wrestling. So I would love to have a good series of just one-on-ones with him. I've only had the triple threat with him and Clay and myself, and that was where, of course, Clay cheated to beat me. But I've been really chasing Clay the entire time. My first match here was a little over a year ago, and they put me in the ring with Clay, and they said, "You got 10 minutes. Show me what you got." We went to a time limit draw, and it was for this belt. Um, then that's where my grind here really started. I didn't really get to do much with Clay or anything, but I watched the story because I knew where I was going to be in the story. Just didn't know when. So I had to put in the work. Um, and Booker, Charmel, and Kevin really believed in me, and they gave me an opportunity to really get into the fold. They put me on every single show. They made sure I had a part to do something to make myself look good, and at the same time help groom talent that was coming up as well. They trusted me with younger talent to help show them how to do things the right way, and that was a big thing for me to see that someone of that caliber was looking at me saying, "Hey, we're about to entrust you with this. Show me what you got." So, of course, being here now, basically my whole career has been chasing this belt here at Reality Wrestling. And I never considered myself a row guy because I didn't train here. This isn't where I was from. This isn't anything I expected to be. I always wanted to come to row. but I always wrestled the road guys everywhere else. Ryan Davidson, Will All Day, Izzy James, Fly Def. These guys are the guys that help groom me everywhere else outside of Row. They're also the guys that helped get me here. They're the guys that put my name out there. They're the guys that told Booker and Charmel, hey, this is the guy you want. Hey, this is the guy you need to have here. And then once I got here, they gave me the opportunity. I don't know if it was vouched on their word or just because they had looked up and seen the stuff I could do. But I didn't take that lightly. I've never had a plan B when I've started wrestling. I've exclusive for y'all. Uh, 4 years into wrestling, I almost had to give it all up. I wasn't making the money I needed. My bills were stacking up. I couldn't afford my rent. Um, and I literally made a decision: either get a plan B and put my plan A on hold, or give it all up and live out of my car. I didn't want the plan B. I didn't want the 9 to 5 because I knew what comes with that. A job that says, I got to have you here. I demand your time. You work for me now. I need you to be here and put me first. That also comes with, if I was to get hurt wrestling, plan B also gets put on hold as well. So I took that vote of confidence and I put it on myself, and I lived out of my car for a year. I was living in Arlington, Texas, and I was working at Texas Motor Speedway. Right across from the Motor Speedway is a Buc-ee's, which we all know they're 24/7. Really nice, clean bathrooms, food as well. And then 2 blocks down the street was a Planet Fitness. So I'd wake up in the morning, I'd go to Planet Fitness, I'd work out, I'd shower, I'd go to work. As soon as I got done with work, I'd go back to Planet Fitness, I'd work out, I'd shower, I'd go to Buc-ee's, get whatever I needed for my food and my drinks that night, and I'd sit out in the parking lot because it's a 24-hour parking lot. I had a laptop that I plugged into my little console, and that's where I watched all my stuff. That's how I did my focus on training. I trained at a little school there called MPX, Metroplex Wrestling.
Yes, very familiar with
Yeah,
that.
so I trained there. Their opening training days were Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So I would train Mondays and Wednesdays in the middle of all that, and then Fridays, if I didn't have a show, I'd be there as well. So for a whole year, I bet on my plan A. I just told myself, I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to give it everything I have, and if it fails, hey, at least I know I went for it, right? And unfortunately for me, it turned out to be one of the best decisions I ever made. Right after about a year of being in the car, a buddy of mine called me and was like, hey, I heard you're living out of your car. I was like, yeah, I am. He said, I want to help. He's like, I don't have a room for you. He's like, but I can give you a roof over your head. And I don't, you ever watched Harry Potter?
Yes.
So
Oh, yeah.
whenever he is first moved in with his aunt and uncle, they put him under the cupboard,
Yeah, yeah,
under the
okay, okay,
staircase.
yeah.
So he told me, he was like, "This is gonna sound weird, but
Man.
we have a cupboard that we use for like all of our foods and stuff. It's a big pantry." He was like, "It's about a 6 by 7 or 7 foot by like 4 foot cupboard." He was like, "It's got shelves and stuff in it. It's got a plug and stuff in there as well and a light switch." He's like, "You could probably get a twin bed or something to fit in there if you wanted." So I took him up on his offer, and I went and got a little cot, and I put it in there, and it fit just barely to the end of the door to the headboard, and I had to even keep my feet a little curled just so they wouldn't go out. But I used the shelves. I put my laptop on the shelf, and that's where my TV was, and then the shelves where I folded all my clothes. I didn't hang anything. I folded all my clothes, put it all up, and that's where I lived for about 6 months. Then I got my own place, and kind of really started grinding to get back on my feet. And Brian Cage, I think we all
Yeah,
pretty familiar with him.
yeah, Brian Cage.
One of my best friends,
Oh, wow.
and he took a shot on me, and without him taking that shot on me, I don't know that I would have made it out of that hole. He had a promoter that reached out to him and asked him to come to a show, and he said yes, but he got to pick his talent. And I guess he had heard some rumblings about me, so he said he wanted to work me. We had one match in a six-sided ring, nonetheless, which was very awkward.
Awkward, yeah.
Just saying,
Yeah,
very very
yeah,
awkward. We had a sick match in that six-sided ring, and afterwards he looked at me and he said, "I'm about to start taking you everywhere with me." I wrestled him 2 or 3 more times in singles matches. After that, we started a faction, and now the faction consists of myself, Cage, Flip Gordon, Casey Navarro, and Tessa Blanchard,
yeah. Okay,
and we call ourselves the Cage Brigade.
okay.
And we do everything together. And it kind of propelled me to another level, to get to where I'm at.
One question I want to ask you. So do you feel like you and Cage have the the best chemistry working with him, or do you have someone else in mind?
So that's kind of the thing. Cage and I don't have bad chemistry together.
Okay.
Um, Whenever we first worked the first time, I don't think he realized I could do things I could do at the pace I
Hmm.
could do it. I did a dive on him, the tope suicito that I
Yes.
do through the middle, and I fly. I'm not one of
Yeah,
those guys
and
that
I
just
noticed
hits
you
right
you
here.
go all out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I told him, I was like, just so you know, like I fly out. Like it's not one of those things I'm just gonna barely jump out. And he's like, oh, I got you, no worries. I go to dive on him, and he was about 3 feet from the apron. He catches my ankles only, and like pile drives me into the cement back behind him. And from that point on, it was like one of those things where we knew we had good chemistry with each other, but it's not the best chemistry I've ever had with
Okay.
anybody.
Okay.
Um, say the best chemistry I've ever had with someone would probably be between two people. Gino Medina,
Yes. Yes. Gino.
him and I have worked so many times, and it's like we're there for everything. We know what the other person's
Where
movement
you're.
is.
Yeah.
And Fuego del Sol.
Yeah.
I grew up training with him. He was
Okay.
at IWR with me when I first started, and literally I worked my first 2 years were with him and a guy named Magnificent Malico. And I worked so many. I probably worked Fuego over 100 times, and it's effortless every single time. It's just we understand each other. We really get each other. Will All Day is another one that I have really good chemistry with. We have very similar styles in the way we think and move. Um, but yeah, Cage and I we have good chemistry, but I wouldn't say it's the best chemistry I
Okay.
have.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, you can continue. I just want to ask that question
Oh
since you
no,
did.
you're good. You're good. Yeah, but that's kind of how I've gotten here today. Now is through Cage and just his help. He's seen something in me that a lot of people didn't or wouldn't choose to see, and it was weird because Lucha Underground was really big when I
Yes.
first started wrestling, and he was one of their main guys. And I was like, dude, that dude's awesome.
Hmm.
Like he's so cool. And then now here, fast forward 8 years later, and I can call him up at any point in time, ask questions. Hey, do you know of a promotion here? I'm trying to get to this area. Yeah, I do. I'll give him a call, let him know you're about the call. Um, he's a big reason why I was at AEW for so long. I was there through the entire pandemic. I was one of the guys that helped really start the pandemic scene there for AEW. Like I said, I've had like 17 plus matches there for them. And they really helped put me on the map too, because while everyone else had stopped wrestling during the pandemic, that was one of the few places you could wrestle.
Mm.
That in Texas. Texas was allowing small crowds,
Yeah.
which we're a different breed down here, man. Like, oh, COVID,
No problem.
sit way
So
over
over
there,
there.
sit over here, let's have a show. And then the cinematic matches were a big deal. But yeah, I really think without him putting his stamp on me, my career could have taken a different path. I still think I would have been here at Row today just because of the guys in the back. Like I said, I wasn't a Row guy. I consider myself a Row guy now, but I didn't train here. The teachings I've got from Row were transcended and passed down from Booker to those guys, and
Those
those
guys,
guys
yeah.
passed it on to me everywhere else I was at.
And so they pretty much are a lot of places as well. So
Absolutely,
yeah.
yeah. So
So we're gonna go into the Clay Roberts situation.
okay,
So remember, it's Summer of Champions triple threat match. How did how did you feel about the whole low blow thing? Because at first, between you and Clay, it was very just competitive. But I think the low blow changed the tempo and the dynamic of you guys' story.
yeah. So it's funny. Last show we was here, and a lot of the guys was asking me if I had seen the thing he'd done with y'all. And I was like, no. And they was like, you should probably go watch it. So I went and watched it, and I was like, oh, with a good episode, really was. And I love Clay to an extent, but the kick was, I think, where I drew my line. Um, we had a handshake agreement, and where I come from, a handshake agreement is a pretty strong bond. The agreement was he didn't leave. Eric Lockhart didn't leave Summer Champions as a TV champion. There was no stipulation, of course, on how it could end. I definitely was not expecting the low blow kick. Um, but to that extent, I should have expected something because the previous show, him and I had a match to determine who was going to be the number one contender,
Mhm.
and I was jumped on the
Jumped on the
outside.
outside. Yep, I remember that.
which turns out to be his goons.
Yeah, that's right. That's
So
right.
after the kick, and I remember laying here right here in this corner, right where we're standing. I can remember laying right there as he was looking this way and watching those two guys come in sliding by me and going, I recognize those faces. Those were the faces that were out here jumping me and throwing popcorn in my face. So in that shot, you can see me really kind of distraught, like, what the heck is going on?
Hmm.
And it clicked. It was a setup from the beginning.
Yeah.
The handshake didn't mean crap to Clay. And he can say that I skipped out on whatever reasons he wanted, but I had an opportunity to do some stuff and it was cleared by Booker and Kevin for me to go do that because they said it was a bigger opportunity at that moment. So in my mind, I gave him the opportunity to hold this belt a month longer than he should have.
Mm.
When I came back, I didn't care what I was going to have to do. He crossed the line. And where I come from, when you break a handshake promise, all bets are off.
That's right.
Did I have to cheat to beat him? No. But I knew what was going to happen. I've been around the block a time or two. 727 matches in 8 years will teach you a lot, especially when you travel the States and you're all over Mexico. You see a lot of things. Usually, you got some guys around, something's going to happen.
Gonna get set
So,
up.
knowing that and the situation and really kind of like the possibility of that happening, I already was prepared for that. That night beating Clay let me know that everything I've given up for this business to hold this now, to prove to him that I don't care what kind of background you have, Mr. Boxing or MMA, I've got the same credentials you do, my guy. And I'm still standing here right now, but I'm your TV champion and you're not, Clay. So if you see this, come say it to my face instead of saying it to a camera because actions speak louder than words and you ain't the champ no more, big dog.
Spicy like the red jacket I got
That is a
on,
nice
man.
red jacket. It matches the belt, the
I thought about
shoes.
I thought about it before I got
Hey,
here.
I like it.
But I did want to go into tonight. As a matter of fact, you have a match, a return match with a Mr. Clay Roberts.
Hmm.
Are you prepared for the shenanigans that could occur with the alleged group tap?
Always stay prepared in this business. If you always stay prepared, you never have to get ready. You come into the same mentality. I know they're going to be here. I know he's going to be here. The only thing I have on my mind is taking care of that title. I earned it. As far as I'm concerned, he cheated to take it from me. If he cheats again to take it from me, that's on him. He's got to live with that decision. I'm not going anywhere tonight without this. And I promise you, no matter what the outcome is, Clay Roberts will realize that title's not his anymore. It belongs to me. And going into the new year, starting 2025, Chandler Hopkins, the shooter, I will be the TV champion for as long as I desire.
Well, you've heard it first from the Big Propaganda Wrestling Podcast, man. He's going to leave with this championship. That's what he says. But before I get off into that, I'm going to say, hey, you're a gamer.
I am. I am a gamer.
So
Yes.
I'm going to deep dive into that a little bit.
Okay.
How'd you get started with the gaming process?
So when I was younger, I didn't, like I said, I was very G-rated till I was about 11, 12. And then my stepdad came in and he kind of opened up the door to a lot of things that I was able to do because there was more adult supervision. My mom was a great mom, but she worked two jobs and was going to school. So basically, I was at home taking care of me and my brother. So I had to become an adult very, very young. I didn't have the time to be a kid. When he came around, he gave me those opportunities to start really being a kid, and he was a big gamer. And I can remember the first thing he pulled out was a Sega Genesis, and we started playing Sonic. And cheap plug Sonic 3 coming out 20th. Go see it. I've already seen the other two, and I'll be there that day too. But yeah, so I started playing on the Sega, and Sonic was just such a big thing for me. And then he was like, "Well, I've been looking forward to upgrading my system, and I'm gonna get a Nintendo 64." And then Mario was introduced to me, um, and it just kind of snowballed from there. Honestly, I have had just about every single gaming console there is. I even went back and got the Ataris. I had a Sega Game Gear, the one that you actually held that was portable.
Mm-hmm.
I've had Game Boys, I've had the PlayStations, I've had your Xboxes. It was a way for me to stay connected to football without being on a football field. And I could learn that way because it was a way to teach my mind formations, how to read defenses and what defenses look like, nickels, your dimes, your 5-3s, things like that. What your setups were for your offenses, what each receiver would do. So it really opened my mind to like, ooh, I can use this as a tool to get better in my craft. And I think that's what gaming started for me. And then it was elevating into all types of video games. I went into boxing, UFC, Final Fantasy, RPG, first person shooters, and it just snowballed. And it's one of those things that it allows me to escape the real world. I think that's what a lot of gamers usually use gaming for. Allows them to get into a different element, um, to really escape what life is putting around all of us, the dramas, the hardships. It's a way for you just to kind of escape and be in your own little area for a little bit. And that's where gaming has gone for me. I stream on Twitch now, Captain underscore Pew Pew underscore, if anyone wants to follow on Twitch. But I do a lot of role play now for different servers. But the role play also allows me to act.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a very big fan of acting. When I was younger, have you ever watched The Mask?
Yes.
Jim Carrey?
Jim Carrey, love it.
Man,
Smoking.
oh my gosh, yes. So when I was younger, that was one of the first movies I kind of really fell in love with. And my mom has got like stories where she'll tell me, she's like, "Oh yeah, the TV would be on. You'd be sitting there reenacting the entire scene with him the entire time. No matter what he was doing, you were doing the whole smoking. You were uh, just doing everything he was doing on the TV screen." And then it just transcended into me really enjoying movies. One day I'd like to start doing movies. Of course, right now I'm focused on my wrestling career, but this is an art form and entertainment as well, and that allows me to connect with the fans, being able to sit here and go, you know what, I'm a decent entertainer myself. I'm a decent actor. I can be funny. I can be mean at times. I can show you the fact that I'm in pain. I need your sympathy. um, and I think that's really kind of where gaming all started for me. Is I got the chance to put it into my everyday life with football,
Mm-hmm.
and now I've found a way to bring it into my everyday life with wrestling. Role play allows me to do that. So I role play with like GTA. I also role play with Red M, so
Right. Yeah.
Red Dead Revolver,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Red Dead Redemption. And that's a way that I can connect with my fans and show them a different side of me as well, so that I can try and get to more different avenues of acting. So
John Cena, The Rock, Stone Cold, Randy Orton, The Miz, all started wrestling
yeah.
and got to big time roles.
It just takes a little bit of creativity and the want to. I feel like a lot of people say they want something, and you and I can sit here and say, I want this, I want that, I want this. But until you put those words into action, they don't mean anything. They're just words. I'm a really big believer on actions speak louder than words.
Yes.
And that's the way I've tried to live my life. Um, if I'm going to do something and I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to put the action to it. I'm going to actually put forth the effort and make those words mean something instead of them falling on deaf ears. I've also been one of those guys. One of the biggest rules my mom taught me when I was younger was the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto
Go to you.
you. So treat others like you want to be treated. And that's something that I've always kept close to me as well. But I'm also that guy that I keep a small circle. So if I treat you well and you don't reciprocate that back, I'm not saying you're a bad person, but you can't sit at my table.
Mm-hmm.
My table's for those around me that I feel like have the same aspirations, the same goals, that follow their actions with their words. They're not just speaking them on deaf ears.
Okay. No, I definitely agree. I totally agree on those
Yeah.
morals and values. Um, okay, so I'm gonna hit you with the speed round today.
Okay. Speed round it is.
So, uh, just a few questions that we normally ask. Shout out to my boy, the Petty Messiah, the Bays Bomber, Corey Jeff's not with us today. But hey,
Wish you were.
the show must go on. So, favorite wrestler all time,
Shawn Michaels,
favorite wrestler currently,
AJ Styles.
favorite female wrestler
Ooh,
all time.
all time. I've got three. Trish Stratus and Lita. They really pushed the women's division into showing that they weren't just women; they could actually wrestle. And then Jazz.
Yes.
Jazz showed you could be a powerhouse woman. You didn't have to just be a feminine wrestler. Currently, Red Velvet, the wifey. Man. Sorry, babe. I ain't gonna, can't do it like that, right?
Happy wife, happy life.
Exactly. Yep.
All right. Favorite tag team currently?
I feel like today's era has the stigma, like, and they're not wrong, FTR Young Bucks. But there's one that I feel like was underrated for so many years, and now they're getting their chance. Motor City Machine Guns.
Yes. Most definitely.
Absolutely.
Favorite tag team all time?
Road Warriors.
Yeah.
Beasts. They threw people around, man. If you didn't want to wrestle with them, they were going to make you wrestle.
So this is a two-part question. Favorite manager currently in all time? Because I'm pretty sure you're going to say
Paul Heyman.
Yep.
There's no one better. I think that's probably a thing most people are going to say. Paul Heyman is he's done it for so long, and he's been able to adapt for so long. And even in today's era, like, he just has a way of pulling things out of the crowd and making them feel a certain way. And you can feel it through a TV screen too. I think he'll probably go down as the greatest, honestly, of all time.
I have one more, and this is kind of gonna pull at your heartstring a little bit. Favorite game of all time?
Favorite game of all time? You know what? I'll give you categories.
Go ahead.
Shooter, Rainbow Six games. Love the Rainbow Six games. Tom Clancy series is awesome. Sports, Madden, NFL. Let's see, role play, RPGs. It's hard not to go with Grand Theft Auto just because it's been around for so long and has so many different series. MLO or MMLOs, probably Diablo.
Diablo's cool. I haven't really got into it yet, but from what I've heard, it's pretty good.
Oh man, Diablo's a beast. So.
Okay. Hey man, thank you for having us.
Absolutely, man. Thank y'all for coming out.
And it's because of you. I will be on the regular saying it's because of him that we are here today, because he made the call, man. He got us on board, man. And y'all already know what time it is. Y'all know me, man. Don't watch me. Watch Dynamite TV. Guru Dynamite in the building. We have your reality wrestling television champion, Chandler Hopkins, man. And hey, man, when you're down with the Big Propaganda Wrestling Podcast, you are down for life. Shout out. One thing I want to do is shout out Charmel, Book, Kale. Love you guys, man. Without you, this opportunity does not happen, man. I appreciate it very much. Thank you so much. You guys have a great afternoon.